This is a wild story. 3 days was all it took to totally change my life. It was over.
$250 million in less than 4 years of projects.
My first actual entrepreneur experience was in jail.
$400 million of sold work in less than 3 years.
I had no clue the challenges I was about to face.
It's the largest minority-owned brokerage here in Texas.
My name is Donnell. Now, my story didn't start here. You see the suits, you see the shirt, you see all this. What you don't see is the prison sentence and getting out and trying to figure out my direction and what I wanted to do. And I'm here to tell you that you can achieve everything that is designed for you.
But I've never been shy of owning the mistakes. But what do you do? Like, yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, some people aren't rooting for you. Some people don't believe in you. But what are you going to do? People will screw you over, and they will not value your time or your money.
Do you think that entrepreneurship is for everyone?
Absolutely not. If you want to get into this entrepreneur space, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is...
Hi there, and welcome to Roll with Steve. Before we get started, a quick favor. If you enjoyed these conversations, hit that subscribe button and join our community. I've got a bold goal to grow this channel to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. And together, I know we can make that happen. So I appreciate your support. My commitment to you is to create new content weekly with talented guests that will help you grow personally and professionally. Also, drop a comment with your thoughts. I read every single one. If you find value here, a quick like or share helps others find the show. Thanks, and let's roll into today's episode. Kenny, by my count, you've started at least 4 multi-million-dollar businesses.
Yeah, that's about right.
Done hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue in different industries, from transportation, construction, real estate. But where your life is at today is by no means aligned to where your adult life started with a 7-year prison sentence from the age of 17 to 24.
Right.
It strikes me that is a downward spiral that most people would not recover from.
Yeah.
But your story doesn't stop there, because you redeemed yourself. You found identity, you found purpose, and it's led to these business stats. You've started and sold businesses. You've built a residential construction firm that built more than 100 homes here in Dallas. A federal construction firm that did more than $250 million in less than 4 years of projects.
Right.
And TD Realty that has 400 agents, the largest minority-owned brokerage here in Texas, and did $400 million of sold work in less than 3 years.
Yeah.
Now you're the CEO of Exposure Experts. You got coaching and brand strategy. You're the author of a book, From Employee to Boss, helping people break away from that 9-to-5 mindset and become business owners. And you're the creator of the One Idea Challenge, a 5-day program to help people to change their lives. I want to dig into all of that.
Okay.
But I want to start with the adversity of your childhood, because like I said, this resume of what you're doing today does not align with 7 years in prison from late teens to your early 20s.
Yeah.
Walk me through your childhood. Like, what led you there to get your life started?
Man, that is a wild story. And if I'm being completely honest about it, it makes no sense, right? I mean, I didn't grow up with a storyline where my parents were in the house. I had both of my parents. And I didn't know my biological, but the dad that I had him since I was 3, right? They were both in the Air Force. We grew up in upper middle class. You talking about Mercedes and cars, and grew up. We were the only black people in a white neighborhood. Like, we didn't have the scenario of the typical storyline. I had no business being in prison, right? I had full ride engineering scholarship to a 4-year university by the age of 16. And a year later, I was in prison. And it was a turn that nobody saw, nobody expected. And a lot of it was really just rebellion. Like, me and my parents were not on the same page whatsoever. I felt like I knew way more than I knew. And I just felt like that they were just against me. What I didn't know was they were dealing with their own issues, right? They ultimately got a divorce. And there were a lot of things that came out as I got older, but I didn't feel like I was seen. So I figured out, well, I know how I can get you to see me.
Yeah.
let me go do something stupid, right? And it was devastating, to say the least. it was not a path that I ever saw myself going through. It was not something that was other people. That I had too much going for me. I had too much in front of me. I had a vision of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with my life, and it was everything opposite of what my parents were doing, right? They don't know what they're doing. I can do better.
Yeah.
And I made a series of big mistakes, and a lot of it, man, was wrapped in this heart trying to help a girl, trying to help a doggone girl. And I was like, oh. But what I found out later was a lot of it was the enemy trying to deter me from what I was supposed to be. And I was way off path. And waking up in a jail cell, I didn't even call my parents.
Yeah.
No, when I got arrested, I didn't even call them. They didn't even, at the time I wasn't even living at home. I was living with my aunt. And I got arrested, and I was in that jail cell for almost a week. And the only way they found out is the school called and said, hey, Kenny ain't been in school. And so then they called around. My aunt didn't know where I was at. They didn't know where I was at. They called in hospitals. They called in everywhere. And they found out where I was at. And
you didn't want them to know.
I didn't want them. I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know, now I had no clue how I was going to get out of this.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have, this is something I couldn't plan for.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't envision this. So I'm sitting in there and I don't know what to do. I'm embarrassed. I don't have anybody I feel like I can call. And so I called nobody. And
so you fall in love with this girl.
Yeah.
17 years old.
Yeah.
And that leads you to,
it leads me to do a bunch of stupid things in a 3-day period. Like 3 days was all it took to totally change what at the time what I felt like was the trajectory of my life, and that it was over.
Yeah.
Like it was a wrap.
What was going through your mind? Are you thinking about the fact that you got this full ride scholarship, or are you just thinking about her?
Her?
That's it.
What scholarship? You know, like, what are you talking about? This girl look good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what scholarship? Well, no. I wasn't thinking about anything past the day. My total mind shifted, and there was nothing in front of me. And you ran the resume down. You know the interesting thing that I'd never put on the resume? My first actual entrepreneur experience was in jail.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my first mentor was in jail.
Huh.
It was an old cat who, now you have to understand, in the jail cell I was in, it was way overcrowded. So we literally had 15 people sleeping in the day room. There were only 4 official jail cells with 2 bunks each. So it was only supposed to house 8 people. Like I know we had to be pushing 30.
Yeah.
And I'm in there, I'm young, I'm with the hardened criminals. Now, I'm not like with a bunch of juvenile.
Yeah.
So these guys are all sorts of vulgar stuff, like what they gonna do when the lights go out. I'm like, Lord, I'm just trying to look strong. But I was a whole lot skinnier then.
Yeah.
And this old man pulls me to the side, and he says, I'm gonna show you how to survive in here. And I said, okay. So he said, now just watch. Watch how people buy stuff. And they do commissary twice a week, right? They do it on Wednesday, they did it on Friday. And people buy cigarettes, and they just, back when you could smoke, they buy cigarettes, they buy hot chocolate, they buy candy bars, they buy all that. And he said, now you see the stuff they buy? And I'm like, yeah. At that point, the week passed. My parents put some money on my books, find out where I'm at. He says, I want you to buy everything you can afford, but just put it to the side. So I went and bought the chocolate and the coffee and all that. I bought that on the Wednesday. By Thursday, them jokers was out. He said, now sell it for double. All right, so I sold it for double. The way we sold back then was they'd put money back on your books, or they'd go and buy the double the thing. So if you give them 1 thing of soup, they owe you 2 soups. You give them 1 bar, they owe you 2 candy bars, right? So when they made Commissary Friday, they had to pay me now what they would have got for themselves. So now Saturday, they don't have nothing again.
Yeah.
So guess what? Sell it to them again for double, right? And I did that, and he said, now I'm going to show you how to expand. He said, now he gave me a little direction, however many I need to do. I went in there, and the 2 guys that were in the jail cells, he's like, go negotiate with them to move out of those cells and give them to you. I said, well, why I need 2? He's like, I got 1 for me. I said, okay. So I did that, and they moved out. And he said, you need 1 more thing. He said, you need to now go buy the one next to him. Now, I'm buying property right in jail.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't realize I'm buying property in jail. So he's like, I need you to now buy the one next door. I said, well, I need the one next door. He's like, well, you need security because you skinny. So you need to go find the biggest, youngest dudes in here, and you need to feed them whatever they want and let them sit. And that's my first actual entrepreneur experience was in jail right there in Fort Worth. It's
You're
wild.
loaded supply and demand and timing. My God, real estate deals.
All right there, man.
When did you realize that you were going to be there for a while? And were you in the same jail the entire time?
So I was in the same jail the entire time. So at first, they just had me in there on auto theft. It wasn't really auto theft. It was unauthorized use. And this is a wild story. I was walking down the street, and I told you we were like the only black people in the neighborhood. And even though I wasn't staying at my mom's, my aunt still lived within the general area. And I'm walking down the street, and I see this car, and it's for sale. It's a Camaro. It's nice. It's white. And I walk up. I knock on the door. I got no money. I knock on the door, and I said, "Oh, you're selling your car?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I'm thinking about buying it." And she hands me the keys. And she said, "Well, go ahead and take it for a test drive." And goes back in the house. I took the car. The way I got caught was I was pulling into a McDonald's, and the cop ran the plate a day later, and then the high-speed chase pursued. You talking about something from cops where I had police behind me. I had the helicopter on there. It was just, I was gone. I thought I got away. I went to make a left, and the car just went dead in the middle of the street. Just totally dead in the middle of the street. And I'm trying to start this car, and then they pull up on me, get guns out, get out the car, drag me out. So I'm in jail on auto theft. It wasn't until day 3 that they knew about the robberies. So then it was the real game. You ain't going nowhere for a minute. And my bond was $1 million. So when I knew I was going to be there for a minute was when they came and they offered me 20 years aggravated. And I was like, nah, I can't do a whole lot, but I sure can't do 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be into my 40s. And I sat on that for almost 6 months. My parents were going to ultimately bond me out. And I just got frustrated. I got tired of waiting. I got tired of sitting there. And I said, you know what? I just want to get my life started. I'll take the 20 years. I told my lawyer, because my parents had got me a lawyer at that point. I said, I'll take the 20 years.
What did that feel like at the time to come to that resolution? Like 20 years. You weren't 20 years old yet.
No. It was devastating, yet at the same time, it was a relief. Because at least I wasn't sitting there doing nothing. Jail is different from prison, right? When you're in jail, you're sitting there doing nothing. You get maybe an hour outside, and you're just sitting there this whole time. And so at least I felt like I'm moving towards something. Right. I realized that that's just my fate. I did what I did. I can't run the game, be like, well, it wasn't me. It was me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my lawyer drew up the paperwork with the DA at the time. And they had some restitution numbers that was wrong. Like, how am I going to pay restitution? I ain't got no money. How this going to work? But okay. So they were like, well, we're going to have to bring you back. They brought me back a week later. My lawyer walks in. Now, to tell you the full breadth of this story, when I decided that I was going to take the 20, I had prayed 6 months earlier. And I prayed that God would not give me 20. I said, God, I can do 10. I can't do 20. Like, I cannot do 20. I can do 10. Now, I grew up in church, but I wasn't with God like that, obviously. And then I forgot about the prayer. So anyway, so my lawyer comes back. She hands me the paper, and she says, I thought I had done all the begging I could do. But there's a DA in from another place that I know, and she flipped the paper over, and he marked out the 20, and it had 10 on it. The tears, I could almost cry right now.
Yeah.
The tears that came down my eyes, I quickly signed that, right? But the reason the judge gave me 20 was because she looked at me and she said, you are the worst criminal I've ever seen. And she said, the reason I say you're the worst criminal I've ever seen is because you don't look like a criminal. They can't see you coming. And that's very dangerous. But it's because I wasn't supposed to be in that space. It was the decisions I had made that landed me in that moment. And I didn't know what the future was going to be. I had no idea that the resume was going to be what it was, but I just knew I needed to start moving forward with something
Yeah.
to give me some level of control back.
How were they able, because you weren't even 18 years old.
Right.
That sounds like an adult sentence.
Should have been.
There.
Should have been.
Why was yours done this way at 17?
I think they were wanting to make a point. And rightfully so. But I think it was to make a point. And we went back even later and tried to get it cleared out, but they wouldn't do anything.
Mm.
They wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was to make a point.
So once you signed the 10-year agreement, like I'm sure that feels like relief compared to 20.
Yeah.
10 years is still a long time, but what's going through your mind?
I am realizing that God is real. I'd never seen a miracle. I'd never known of a miracle that I could put my hands on. And him and I the only ones that know about that prayer, and there was no reason at all for the lawyer to do that. There was no reason for my lawyer to do that. There was no reason for the DA to do it. So I realized in that moment God was real. The second thing was relief. It was relief. It was like, now, great, get me out of here. Put me on a prison yard. Let's go. I got some things that I want to do. So let's get moving.
Yeah. And that didn't happen?
Yeah.
You did not go to the prison yard?
No, I went to the prison yard.
You did? Okay,
Oh,
so you
yeah.
moved somewhere else from that jail.
They put me on the bus. They drove me down there. They checked me into the prison unit on the big yard bird. And I did 7 years on there.
What's that feel like? Because you've already been in jail for 6 months.
Yep.
Up to this point.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, I kind of know how this goes at this point, or is that a whole different experience?
That's a whole different beast.
Tell me about that.
That was wild, because now you went from these few people that's in the jail cell, and maybe some of them got some serious stuff, maybe some don't, but everybody's really hoping that they're going to get out, right? Nobody's been assigned anything. But you walk into prison, like, these people got life. Some of these people got 30. Some of these people got 15. Some people got smaller sentences. But these people know they're going to be here. That's a different mindset. That's a dog eat dog. That is a don't look at nobody, don't approach nobody, all that, find the biggest dude, punch him in his mouth. Yeah, if you want to get some situations started, you going to do that. But it's best just to take it easy, pay attention to what's going on, figure out the hierarchy of how things work, and just go about your business to try to do your sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was, especially from a kid. You know, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And now I'm in here and it's all equal. Kid, no kid, don't matter. You are a prisoner.
Yeah.
Serving a sentence. Yeah.
Did you feel like once you got there, you're thinking 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is 7 a possibility in your mind that you're thinking about getting out?
Man,
early?
I wasn't even thinking 10 because, you know, I heard about parole, right? So I'm like, hey, if you good and you mind your business, you have the possibility to come up parole. I think for me it was after year 2. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be model citizen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be above whatever. Like, tell me the criteria.
Yeah.
Right? That was just my mindset. Like, I'm gonna do it. So I did come up for parole. I came up parole 4 times.
When was the first time? How many years?
I was about year 2.5.
Okay.
And I was, you know, I was hopeful. I hadn't had any trouble. I'd even made it out to the trustee camp. You know, I was doing some things in prison, and it's wild to say. I was doing some things in prison, and I came up for parole, and they denied it. And that hurt.
Yeah.
Because you start thinking about, man, you know, what's life gonna be? I'm about to get out of here. You know, Jodeci's on the radio. You know, all the popular songs. Right? Like, you start thinking about your life really now starting, and you're about to get into doing some stuff. And they said, no, we're going to have you at least another year with us.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right.
What was the reason for denying the parole? You'd been a model citizen.
No reason.
In there. That's got to be tough to have hope.
Yeah.
And then have that stricken.
Yeah.
No fault of your own at that point.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing the best you can. And you're just on somebody else's time schedule.
That's it. And
Yeah.
I was on that time schedule until the 5th time. And it was the 5th time that they said yes. But that was denied every year. Boom, denial, denial, denial.
Yeah.
And you just get a letter and it said you've been denied. There's
So
no
you aren't
reason.
even like, you're not even told person to person. It's just coming
just
in like,
wait
all
for
right,
the
we'll be
mail.
here longer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild, but there's a lot of parallels that we can draw later from that experience
Yeah.
right there
Yep.
of what it feels like to go through rock bottom again and again and again and to
Yeah.
be denied. But then, okay, you walk out of there
Yeah.
at 24. Was there a moment when you were in prison that you decided, hey, this is not going to define me?
Day
I don't think
one.
you could have imagined. Day one.
Day
okay.
one.
Okay.
Day one. It was not. I already knew this was not going to be my story. I knew it was not going to be my story. There was no part of my past life that aligned with this story. So there was no part of me that ever felt like this was going to be my life. No matter. And they tried. Even to the point I started taking college classes in prison. So I got my associate's degree while I was in prison.
Okay.
And some of the guards would tell me, now there were other guards that would support me, but some guards would say, why are you doing that? You gonna come back. You'll be back. Like, you just wasting your time. And the more they said that, the more I knew, like, you a lie. First of all, you don't know me. Second of all, I'm not going to live in a place that tells me what can I wear, what time I gotta be, where I can work, what I can do. That is way too much control over my life.
Yeah.
To freely give it to you, especially now that I know what it's like. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. What did it feel like walking out of there at 24?
Good. It felt like the first time I could breathe air. It felt like there's so much in front of me. I had no clue the challenges I was about to face, but it felt like I was born again. Trying to grab an analogy that really hits. It was that freeing, like I had never felt fresh air before, though I had. But it felt like when you talking about I'm free. Yeah, it was free.
It's a crazy way to spend your early 20s.
Yeah,
you know. I mean, I know what my early 20s were like, and I wasn't very focused, but.
Right.
Part of my story was joining the military, and these days I used to always refer to it as like, military kind of feels like prison. I've never been to prison. Right. I don't know. Okay, so you're like, shut up, dude. Okay, that's not prison. Okay.
Man, my dad told me I was too hard-headed to join the military.
Yeah.
He told me that at a young age. I was like, I might want to join. He like, you too hard-headed. You ask too many questions.
Yeah.
You don't want to mind.
What was the first thing that you did to start rebuilding your life after incarceration?
I did two things. I applied to get into college and was denied. They denied me because of my prison record. So we fought for 2 weeks. When I say we, it was my dad and his wife at the time, Angela. And I remember going up to the chancellor's office, and we walked in there, and Angela said, do you have anybody on this campus with a record? The chancellor was like, well, he started hemming and hawing and all that. And she says, if you don't let him into this college and you have anybody on this campus with a record, I'm calling Royce West. I'm calling, like, she started naming people I ain't never heard of, right? She started naming senators and all these people. And she's like, I'm going to bring hell down on you so bad. You can't deny him because he served his sentence and is now trying to get his degree. Week later, I got a letter they accepted me. Right? I can cry for that too.
Yeah.
We're pulling out all these emotions.
Yeah.
So I did that 4 year. I already had the 2, so I had 2 more to do. Really, they accepted some of it. They didn't accept all of it. So I had a 3-year thing. I finished in 2 because I full ride the whole way, full schedule, even in the summertime. The second thing I tried to do was get a job because one of the stipulations was I needed to get a job. Nobody would hire me. McDonald's wouldn't hire me. Domino's wouldn't hire me. Like, I can't flip fries.
Yeah.
I can't turn a burger. I can't.
Did you think that was fair?
No, but I didn't care because fair wasn't relative. It was the rule, right? I created the scenario that put me in a situation to be subject to the rule. So I can't change the rule. So now what do you do?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about what do you do is Angela, my dad's wife, had this 2-door Pontiac with hail damage, and that's what I was driving to college. And one day, it was almost an hour drive from where we lived, and I veered off and I stopped into this. I don't even know how I ended up there, but there was this complex of small buildings, and there was a guy that was out there talking to like UPS, and then UPS left, and I've never been afraid to ask people questions, so I just asked the guy. First of all, I wasn't sure where I was at, like how do I get back to whatever. I'm just coming from college, da da da. And then I asked him what he does because he was in his warehouse with all these boxes, and he told me that he has the contracts to the hotels in Dallas and Fort Worth where he delivers housekeeping stuff, ironing boards, iron and stuff like that. And I said, okay, well that sounds pretty cool, whatever I said. And so we talked about it a little bit. I said, so UPS, you ship it there? He's like, yeah, UPS comes, I put in my order. And I said, well, how much do they charge you for that? And he told me what they charge. And I said, well, I'll do it for half. He's like, you do it for half? I said, yeah, I'll do it for half. I'm right up ahead at college, and it's like 20 minutes. My classes are blah, blah, blah. And I'll just swoop down here, and I'll go and take them. And he said, okay, I'll give you a try. And for my 2 years, that was my entrepreneur experience where I had ironing boards sticking out of this car, man. I was up and down the freeway. I pulled up to the Crescent in Dallas one day, my first time pulling up in there, and we had these ironing boards sticking out, and I pull up to the front. And you should have saw the valet people. They were freaking out because like these are nice cars in front of the Crescent. Yeah. And here I am pulling up in this beat up car with these iron boards sticking out. They're like, you need to take that to the back immediately.
Right. Get the hoopty out of here.
Yeah, you need to get this out of here real quick. But that's what I did, and I was making about $300 a week doing that. And that was good money, obviously, for me.
Yeah.
But I've never been shy of owning the mistakes. But what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, some people aren't rooting for you. Some people don't believe in you. But what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's always been my mentality.
It's interesting that you almost got pushed into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you think would have happened if McDonald's had hired you? Like, do you go on to have the resume that you do?
Probably not. I probably don't. I probably don't. I've probably settled into something more corporate and what a lot of people would feel would be safe. But a lot of my ability to take the risk and not be afraid of building from ground up is because I know what real ground up looks like.
Yeah.
And if I can build from that, I can build from anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It just, it strikes me that if you had that normal life,
yeah,
at what point do you become complacent with this? And it's like, hey, why would I take the leap and go into entrepreneurship? It's like, no, nobody's going to hire me.
No.
You hire yourself.
You hire yourself. No, I think you're right. I think my path would have been totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have in my notes here something about a limo service.
Oh, man.
What did this happen in your journey? Because you eventually sold the limo service?
I clearly give too much information in my stuff. Okay, so the limo service was, first of all, an epic fail. Okay, the limo service was an epic fail. It was me and two buddies. And the way the limo service came about is at the time, we were volunteering at a church, and we were doing transportation for the church, right? And so we'd go pick up people who'd fly in for conferences, doing all this stuff. And so we got the bright idea. We're like, hey, let's start a company together. Okay, what y'all want to do? Well, we all in transportation. Let's start a limo company. Well, okay, who has a license to drive limos? Nobody. Who has a limo? Nobody. Who do we know? Well, we know people who have limos because of what we're doing. So we reach out to a friend who has limo business, and we're like, hey, we want to start a limo business, but we don't have a limo and all. He's like, he knows all that. And we was like, hey, can we use one of your limos that you may not have booked if we can create an opportunity for an event? And he was like, sure. I don't think he really thought we was ever going to be able to do it. And I'll be doggone. There was an event coming up. An old sportscaster now, Dale Hansen, who was really popular back in the day. He was having one of his parties. And we got booked to be one of the limo teams. So at that point, the event planners would have teams because it was a lot of people, right? So we got booked to be on the team with our little one limo. And we got out, we made that was clean. We got our little black suits on. We put a black hat on. Now, it probably was weird that there's 3 of us picking up this one person in this limo, but we did it, right? So our claim to fame was we had one job, Dale Hanson's party, and we got to pick up Emmitt Smith.
No way.
Yeah, we got to pick up. Now, he didn't talk to us. He had no clue to this day who drove him to that party, right? Yeah. But we got to pick up Emmitt Smith and take him to the party. And, man, we thought we were like, yeah, we're in now. We didn't get another job after that. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to really go about doing any business. So the limo service, yeah, it was epic failure.
But epic failure, but you made some money? You got paid for that gig, right?
Yeah, we probably made $100 after we had to pay the limo guy for using his limo.
Yeah.
And then our gas that we put in the limo and cleaning it, and our suits that we had to go buy, and the little black cap. And then we had to split it between 3 of us. Yeah.
But people tend to understate starting small and learning those lessons of, hey, epic failure, but I started a business. I know how to go make it happen.
It did teach me what I didn't know. Like it made me realize I don't know how to market and advertise. And I really, quite honestly, don't know how to sell effectively. When I sat back and I looked at it, it did teach me the things where I need to get better in these areas, which a lot of my experiences in and out of entrepreneurship in corporate America has been targeted. I went to companies that I wanted to learn specific things from so that I can be a better entrepreneur.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I think gaining skills is something that is understated.
Yeah.
People just say, oh, I want to go start a business. Well, what skills do you have? You went through a period of gaining skills, both in your early entrepreneurial ventures, but also working in corporate gigs and learning.
Yeah.
Tell me about that piece.
Yeah. So when I transitioned outside of working for the ministry, right, that's why I started the J&R Construction Services, where I built the houses under the name Donnell Custom Homes.
This is the one you built. You built 100 residential homes on these ones here.
Yeah.
And that was right here in Dallas.
That was right here in Dallas.
Okay.
And it was a multiple need that was being met at that point for me. One, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And the pastor that I worked for, Bishop Jakes, one day he told me, he said, you should start your own thing. Now, he didn't think I was going to do it as soon as I did it, but he told me you should start your own thing. Like, you have that capability. He saw it before I even really embraced it. And so that's why I started the fixing and flipping and doing things like that, because I could do that on the side while I was working. And that got so big that I had to decide his vision or my vision.
Yeah. And this is Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Yeah.
What did he see in you?
I think he saw that drive and that never quit. I think he saw maybe even God's blessing on me. He was a big impact on me. Watching how he moved, I was very blessed where if he was in a city, I was in that city. So his schedule was my schedule. So when he traveled, at first I was on the sales team and we'd go ahead of him and we'd get the products and all that set up. And I did a lot of interacting with him, and I learned a lot just from watching and listening. And we'd go to, after we go to dinner, we go to the pastor's host house, and I made some mistakes, but I learned some things too there. Man, it was wild. But I think he saw those things in me. And so he knew I was going to leave before I knew I was going to leave, because when I was debating leaving, right before he got on this last stage I was at, he turned around and he said, "Don't go yet." Now, when you talk about, I'm not even gonna get into Bishop, because when you talk about somebody that people can have their feelings about Bishop, I've only saw the real Bishop, and the real person. And so he knew I was leaving before I even knew I was leaving. He said, "Don't go yet." Well, it was 6 months later, I was gone. And so I did the construction side, fixing and flipping. It was super competitive. I'm like, you know what? I was looking around and I saw these empty lots, and I'm like, why don't I just build a house? Like, why am I competing with all these investors? Why not just build a house? Like, it was that easy, right?
And you had no experience building
at all,
anything at all,
nothing.
Right?
It's not, and even with the fix and flip, it's not like I was in there tearing up tile. And I'm hiring guys to do this. I'm learning as I'm going. I had no experience in any of that, but I wasn't afraid to do it. And so I did it. And then I started buying up lots in Dallas. And the thing that I found out was a lot of these empty lots were lots that were inherited by people. So someone passed and maybe they wasn't even in Texas and they inherited this lot. And they're building up all these fees for the city taking care of it and the back taxes and all that. Most of the lots I bought may have cost me $1,000 to buy them.
Yeah.
And pay the back taxes on them. It was pennies. Matter of fact, the crazy thing, last year, there was 2 lots I didn't know I still owned.
Is that right?
And the city sent me a letter saying that they were going to sell them at auction. And I looked at it, I looked them up, and I'm like, sell them. I don't care. I'm not going to pay the taxes on that. What I didn't realize, as much as I've been in real estate, is when they sell those lots, anything excess goes back to the owner, the original owner. They only keep whatever the fees were. Them jokers sent me a $30,000 check.
It's all right. From lots that you've been sitting on for.
I completely forgot about them. They were not, for somehow I didn't have the records on them. So when I was building all those houses and then a small time but big developer back then, Choice came in and bought up all the remaining lots that I had, I didn't even realize that I had 2 other lots that I had bought that maybe I paid $1,500 for. And I'd never done anything with them.
What was your return on investment like when Choice came in and bought all those lots from you? You bought them for $1,000. What did that look like?
It looked very nice. It looked like maybe I can retire kind of nice. But it wasn't. It was a couple $100,000, right? Yeah. When it was all said and done. Like they didn't come in and they knew they can get them cheap too because they knew I got them cheap.
Yeah.
Right. So they came in and they offered me something fair, but it was a couple $100,000.
Was that your first big win?
That was my first big win. Like that was huge for me. Like I may have spent $20,000-$30,000 on these lots. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
What did that feel like to close that first big deal? Because you may not look at that now as say big, but people listening that are aspiring, and I'm sure you at the time, like that's a big check.
Yeah, that was a big check. So the people that know me probably know this. I'd say would know this to be true. I don't get too high or too low. So that deal closed, and the next day I was just like, "What's next?" You know, it's like, okay, it's done. I was happy in the moment. I'm still happy with it, but I don't sit in defeat or victory long because I think you'll get sidetracked real easy. You'll either start seeing yourself way higher than you should, or you'll start believing the lie and you'll have yourself defeated way lower than you need to be. So it probably was like the next day or two, I was like, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah.
What'd I do?
And that's the entrepreneur in you too, because it's like, well, now I have all these skills and the cash.
Right.
that goes along with that. But you went from that venture into corporate America. Yep. Tell me why you made that decision and what you learned as part of that process.
So the thing that I learned when I did the home building piece was I still didn't know how to negotiate effectively, right? Like I knew I did well, but I feel like I could have been better, but I never negotiated. I've never really had to negotiate anything. Like getting the lots was a negotiation because these people, they didn't care about these lots, right? Nobody was like, I'll hold out for $4,000. Like, yeah, give me the $1,000, right? Yeah. Dealing with contractors really wasn't negotiating because I just got 4 bids from somebody else. I'm like, hey, here's the budget. Can you do it? Can you not do it? I really didn't know how to negotiate effectively. And I really knew that I still had a bunch of skill sets that I didn't have. So I had a friend of mine who was working at Corporate Express at the time. And they told me about Corporate Express. And so, which later got bought out by Staples. And I went in and I interviewed. And I had my resume out there. And the guy who was interviewing me, he's like, man, you want to come work for a company. Like, you've done entrepreneur things. You've never really had any true corporate-like experience. The ministry, they didn't really look at that as equal. And I said, yeah, I want to learn sales. I want to learn how to sell. I said, and I'll be good at it. And he gave me a shot. His name was Bruce Trahey. He gave me a shot. And it's funny because I was interviewing against this lady named Kimmy Hill, and I got the job above Kimmy. And Kimmy called Bruce after she found out I got the job and told Bruce that he made a mistake, hired the wrong person. So Bruce was so impressed that he hired Kimmy 2 months later. Me, Kimmy Hill, and another friend of mine named Elisa, we've been friends up to this day because we met at Corporate Express, right? But and that first year, if Kimmy listens to this, she'll be pleased that I say this. She did outsell me. She made it to, I forget what the trip was, Bahamas or wherever it was. So that's her claim to fame.
There you go.
But I learned how to sell through Corporate Express and ultimately Staples when they got bought out.
Was the prison time even a factor once you got to this point of an interview? Having the other experience there, did it even matter anymore?
Not that I know of.
Did they know about it?
Yeah. No, I disclosed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was still, within that time period. Like nowadays, I think people don't care after 10 years or 15 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was like at any time. And I was up front with Bruce in the interview.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I didn't want, if you're going to tell me no, just tell me no.
Sure.
Right? If that's going to be an issue, just let it be an issue. I can handle the rejection. What I can't handle is the not knowing. So if it's going to be no, let it be no. So I just put it out there.
What's the lesson there for how hard it was to get a job at McDonald's coming out of prison to then having this experience, entrepreneurship, having had these experiences in the limo business and the courier business, and now this thing that was in your past that did define you at the time is no longer affecting people's judgment of you. What's the lesson that you would say to other people who have things in their past that they think, I'm not gonna be able to outlive this?
The lesson is what matters is what you say about you and then what you do with it. If you say that's not you, then go do something with it. But if you believe that's who you are, then you're going to do something with that too. Whatever you believe, and then whatever your actions align with is what you will get out of your life. And yes, it's going to be hard. And yes, people will not believe in you. And yes, people are going to doubt you. And yes, people are going to judge you for your past. But what do you say? And what do you want? And then what are you willing to do to get the life you want? Because it doesn't matter if the world supports you or if the world hates you. What matters is what you do with what you say to yourself. And if you can believe in you, just keep walking.
When did you come to that conclusion?
About a minute ago. No, it's a continuous journey.
Yeah.
I don't know when the light switch hit, but what I do know a driver was for me was I was never going back. I was never going back, and I wanted a life. Like I wanted to have the things in life that I felt like I deserved to have, to be happy, to be loved, to have kids. Like I wanted those things for me. And so I couldn't see a scenario where I wasn't going to be able to get them. Even though I had moments of frustrations and doubts and challenges, and I had late nights where it just didn't feel like it was never going to happen. And I didn't make all the right decisions along these journeys. And I'm not going to sit here and be like every company was just so amazing and I didn't make any wrong turns or left turns. Yeah, I'm human. I made the same mistakes that everybody else makes, which is why I'm okay with saying I made them, because I understand that we're all human too.
Yeah.
So you have to believe in yourself beyond all things. And the biggest voice will be that voice that you speak to yourself in. If you can conquer that voice, you're unstoppable.
So much of your story after your time in corporate America is big scale, quickly accomplishing so many tremendous things. And I want to dig back a little bit because that doesn't happen without a knowledge of systems, a knowledge of people, and leveraging partners, other people's time, potentially other people's money.
Yeah.
Prior to this, as you're working in the construction company, the first one, building residential homes, what did you learn about leveraging other people that would be influential to you in building much larger businesses later in life?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you're gonna scale or grow anything, you will not do it alone. It's not gonna happen. You're only gonna get so far because you got to sleep. It's only one person. So I knew that I needed help. I also knew that I didn't know anything at all about, let alone building houses, but even flipping and remodeling. I had no experience. So I had to trust people, but I also know, I think the one thing that prison did teach me was I can pretty much spot somebody that's lying
Hmm.
and you don't know what you're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't still mess me over, which I learned from the first house I built. But I learned how to identify and the questions to ask to identify if you knew what you were doing. And what people do now when they go and do Google reviews and all that, like I was doing that back then because I'm like, give me 3 references and I'm going to go drive by your projects and let me go see what you're looking at. Let me talk to the people that hired you. Like I know I didn't know what I knew. So I couldn't trust my instincts. I had to trust other people's word and the projects that were out there. But there was no way that I was going to grow if I didn't bring in the people to help me. I learned that right off the bat. So the construction side taught me that real quick. But it also taught me that people will screw you over. And they will not value your time or your money. So you have to be on top of your numbers. You have to understand what a cost is. You have to understand the difference between revenue and profit. Like you have to, and these things I learned along, so I was picking up pieces along the journey. But if you don't utilize the resources of people and the right people, scaling is hard.
For someone who's wants to get started, how do they go about learning those lessons?
I wish I could say read every book, and you should read books. Read books right now, YouTube, TikTok, like there's a bunch of stuff that's out there. Be selective on who speaks to you. Don't take advice from somebody who hasn't done the thing. There's a lot of people out there that talk about a thing that actually have never done it. So they should do that. But the biggest thing that I think, if you want to get into this entrepreneur space, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they don't have the financial ability to withstand the ups and downs. They'll have an idea and they'll jump out there and like, let me just go for it. If you can have at least 12 months of expenses already put aside, where you don't have to stress about, if I don't make this sale, if I don't do this deal, I can't eat, or my electricity gets turned off, or my car gets taken. Made me think about a funny story. So when I first started doing the real estate thing, and I did the first flip and all that, I got this Ford truck, beautiful Ford truck, man. It had the leather seats in it, looked like a saddle. The thing was beautiful. And one morning I came out, and that thing was gone. I came out in the drive, it was gone. I'm like, man, somebody stole my truck. I called the police. I'm like, somebody stole not me calling the police, right? I called the police. Somebody stole my truck. The lady's taking all the information. She says, just by chance, are you behind on any payments? I'm like, you know what? Let me call you back. Man, I called the bank. They were like, yeah, we came got that truck, bro. We came got that truck. You gonna pay this money, right? And I was trying to get it off the ground, but the cash flow wasn't coming consistently, but the bills were, right? The electric bill, the house bill, the water bill, the car, all that was coming. So I'm juggling these things, trying to get this business off the ground. If you can save your expenses, I say 12 months, whatever that looks like for the person, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier, and you don't become desperate to try to make things happen. You can learn, you can really develop, you can grow, you can get the right people, you can scale effectively. But when you have that additional pressure, that you have to be able to make some money, that's where a lot of people make mistakes.
Because failure is an excellent educator.
Yeah.
But you're saying you have to be able to afford to fail and not go under.
Yes, you do. You do, because so many people find themselves back working for corporate, which is not a bad thing. But if that's not where you want to be, if that's not where your desire is, if that's not where your heart is, then it's going to feel drowning. But you got to be wise in how you move. And especially with so many resources that are out there in today's world and a lot of information, and you can move smarter, but you got to be willing to sacrifice. And this is what most people are not willing to do. You got to be willing to sacrifice some things for your future. You can't have every single thing you want right then.
What about the people who say that, Kenny, I got to have my back against the wall.
Yeah.
You know, I need that pressure in order to go and attack this dream. I got to quit this job and I got a mortgage payment and kids that, what do you say to those people?
Go for it. I'm never going to be the one that don't say do it, right? Go for it. Just understand, I have, my staff got me a mug in my office and it says, shh, no one cares, right? And that is true. So go for it. Just understand that when it gets tough, and it's going to get tough, you chose that, right? When it's challenging, and it's going to be challenging, you chose that. You picked that. Kind of like I was saying, I put myself in prison. It didn't put me there. I chose that. But what are you going to do? So yes, it's hard. Yeah, you're frustrated. And yeah, you thought you was going to get the sale, or you thought your mama was going to do it. Whatever it is, it happened. But what are you going to do? You're going to have to, you are the boss. What Jay-Z and Beyonce say, everybody boss till it's time to the checks and invoices come.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you chose. So now what do you do? Because yeah, you can get your back up against that wall and you can fight your way through and you can have success. And 100%, I'm with you. I believe in you. I'm for you. But I'm also a coach. So when you come and you feeling down and you sobbing, I'm going to tell you, so what? Now what we going to do?
Yeah. If I went out and polled 20 people on the streets of Plano or Dallas and asked them, hey, do you want to work for yourself? You want to be a business owner? I bet I would have more than 50% of people say, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think entrepreneurship is for everyone?
Absolutely not.
Why do you say that?
Absolutely not. Man, you have got to have the ability to sustain pressure, for one. What I mean by that is, when you want to be the seat at the top, when you want that title, you want CEO, which to me really is just chief servant, right?
Yeah.
Your job is to take care of everybody under you. Your job is to take care of the employees, the staff, the contractors, whoever's under you. They're all depending on you. And not only are they depending on you, the families are depending on you, right? You're affecting legacies that you'll never know about. That's a lot of pressure. You got to be able to withstand that pressure. The second thing is, you got to be okay with rejection, because people that you trust, that you think should really ride with you, they not, because they know you from Pookie, right? They know what you used to be. They know how you used to act, right? They ain't trusting you with that. No, man, you ain't proven yet, right? So you got to be okay with that. And then you have to be okay with the look of failure. A lot of times before success comes, it looks like it's failure. You may not be making the 6 figures you made in corporate, or you might not be making the 5 figures you made in corporate, whatever it is. A lot of times before the success breakthrough, it's going to look like failure. And you have to be okay with it not looking the part. This whole fake it till you make it, no. You ain't making it. And you're going to look like you're not making it. But you got to be okay with that, because you have to believe in you, in your vision, and what you're going after. And if you can do that, man, I met a lot of dumb, successful people.
Yeah.
Like, success does not care.
Yeah.
Success doesn't say, well, I'm only giving it to these people, and you got to look like this and sound like this. That's not how success works. But you do have some principles you got to be willing to deal with and go through. And if you're willing to do that, sky's the limit.
if the early signs of success look a lot like failure,
Mhm.
how does someone who feels like they're failing today distinguish whether they should continue moving forward or fail quickly and move on to something else?
What your bank account look like. A lot of that is going to determine that, right? When it gets to the point where you can't afford to keep on failing, yeah, it's time to do something different. And that's how a lot of people find out, quite frankly, is what does the money look like? So you have to learn how to project out. You have to learn how to use resources, whether it's a CRM as your guidance to understand what is my 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 120. What is the outlook? What does the future forecast look like from a financial standpoint? So it doesn't sneak up on you, right? That will help you more than anything as you're looking out. And then you have to not work harder for someone else than you do yourself. And here's where I find a lot of entrepreneurs fail. When they were working at 9 to 5, they knew they had to be at work at 9. They were at work at 8:50. They knew they had to work till 5. They worked till 6. They put in those hours because they understood, I got to keep this job. They became an entrepreneur and they think, all I got to do now is work 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
No, that's not how that works. You work, I say it like this. There's no way I was going to work harder for the state of Texas than I do for me.
Yeah.
And they put me to work, right? But I worked hard for them. I worked hard for Staples. I worked hard for Grainger. I worked hard for companies. There's no way if I gave them all that, I'm going to shortchange me.
Yeah.
But a lot of people shortchange themselves.
You wrote this book, Employee to Boss.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset shift of someone coming out of it, I'll tell you, I've had a lot of failed businesses to be successful. Many more failed. But some of the ones that failed were, I think, responsibility. But I also had partners in those businesses. Some of them were coming out of corporate America. And I remember hearing things the moment that I knew things were going to go wrong in that business, because I was only giving it 20% because I had a lot of other stuff going on, was when the person coming out of corporate America says, all right, we're doing this thing full time. Tell me what I should do.
Right.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Me tell you what you like? You told me you were an entrepreneur,
Right.
that if you didn't have the day job, that you were going to go out and. How common is that that you see the people you're coaching?
Very, very. If 10% out of 100 actually had a plan and executed it, I would be shocked. The large majority don't. And I understand why. They never had to. So you get a job, you interview for a job, they give you the requirements and the responsibilities. You get that job, they bring you in to do that job, you do that job. A lot of times you think you're the only one that can do that job, right? You think that if you left, the company would fall apart, right? But the company was surviving before you showed up. And then when you die, it's going to be there. But all you did was that job, even though you felt it was the most important job in the world. Now you got your own business. They're all your job. You are accounting, HR, sales, marketing, advertising. You are the visionary, the direction. You are customer service. Like, it's all you. Even if you have people under you taking care of those things, it all comes to you. So when you want to know what you should be doing every day, pick a title and go do all of them, right?
Tell me what I should do.
Yeah.
What's the things on my list for today?
Right. First of all, we need money, so let's go get some customers.
Right. Okay, let's get to the fun part of the conversation, talking about big business and scaling. For the people who already have a business and they're a solopreneur or they've got a team of 3, I want to start delving into this idea of hundreds of millions of dollars and the systems. So I think the best place for us to start here is to talk through the federal contracts time you did.
Okay.
And to restate that, in 4 years, your business accomplished $250 million of federal contracts.
Yeah.
Now, I know you can't be a one-person company who's selling it, who's getting the business, who's fulfilling the business, who's running all of it, running quality control. Can you tell me that story and bring into that this idea of systems and scaling and how you can build something so big so quickly?
Yeah. That this is going to sound really crazy. That was probably the easiest build, was the federal construction side, right? Because that was a partnership. That was a partnership where I had just done some consulting work for this company called EJES. And I met his brother on an elevator. And we were having a conversation about his credentials and all the things that he's doing. And he was thinking about shutting down the business. And we started talking about, hey, don't shut it down. Let's get into the construction side of things. Let's enhance it. And we agreed to do that. But we didn't have that level of construction experience. So we had to go get a partnership with a known construction company in a different vein that was not in the federal world, but they wanted to be. So we negotiated a partnership deal that allowed us to have some credibility and some bonding capability to start doing some small jobs for the federal government, which we did. But the way we had it structured, it also gave us the opportunity to meet the bonding company that was bonding that construction company. It gave us the opportunity to, it's like that warm introduction where if I would have just walked in the door and I'm like, hey, I'm Kenny, they were like, get out, right? We don't know you. But because Jim introduced me, right? Then Jim has credibility. Now you guys must be okay. And because we were on a couple projects with Jim, now the bond company is like, okay, we'll start you out with $1 million something. Let's do it. But we use Jim's resources, his construction management team, his QuickBooks accounting systems, like how all these things lay out. We were learning through mentorship while doing on the job, right? But on the front end, if I'm being completely honest, most people didn't even know it was two brothers running that company because everybody that was front facing didn't look like us. But that was the game we were in, right? And I'm okay with playing that game. I don't care who get the credit as long as the money worked right.
Yeah.
So we did that. We started to get our own line of credit, our own bonding capability. And then we started going out, and who did care about what we looked like was a lot of the procuring officers within the government sector. So now when we would walk in the door, they didn't see us before. And they were like, yeah, let's do some business. We want to see you win. Let's do some work.
So the start, relationships and partnership, that's what got this catapult. I mean, can that be overstated enough that if you want to build something big, you better have partnerships and relationships?
Relationships and partnerships. You don't have that weight yet. And even if you have that weight yet, if you want to scale and get bigger, you need to bring other people in, right? Everybody knows Jerry Jones. Everybody knows the Dallas Cowboys. What they don't realize is when Jerry bought the Cowboys, it was a conglomerate. It was a partnership deal that he brought in other people to help him solidify that. He ultimately bought them out. But it wasn't just Jerry just dropping down cash buying the Cowboys. When you want to go big, go together. If you want to stay small, stay single.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how it works. You diversify the opportunity, you also diversify the risk. But bring in good partners that have value. I think I see a lot of partnerships and you don't know and he don't know and they don't know. And y'all partnering together like to know what? Nothing. Like where you going? Nowhere. Right? Everybody has to have a lane. Bring in expertise, what you do. The challenge with partnerships is egos. Who wants to be seen? Who wants to be the name? Who wants the credentials? Who wants the acknowledgement? That's where most partnerships go south because of pride and ego jumps into this thing. If you have all those other factors in place, what I've seen usually in partnerships was somebody started either getting a big head or wanted more recognition, i.e. Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson.
$250 million in projects. Talk me through these partnerships, getting it. But how did you know what your role needed to be in side of this partnership to make
Yeah.
it grow so quickly? How can other people know what their role should be if they want to grow something big?
I've always known that I'm really good at seeing the operations and the opportunity and then bringing the pieces together. I never cared to be the one who had the CEO title, right? Actually, this is my first venture where I officially have called myself the CEO, right? Even when I brought in my dad, when we did the construction thing, I didn't care to have that title. You have to know your strengths. And in knowing your strengths, you have to know your weaknesses.
Hmm.
And those weaknesses are not negative. I think we've started to define weakness as a negative. It's not. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you either to build that up or to bring in other people that can offset that, right? Because you can't know everything.
Yeah.
You cannot be the smartest person in the room. And you shouldn't want to be the smartest person in the room. And if you are the smartest person in the room, dumb it down, right? Don't let everybody know you think you know it all. You need other people's insight. You need their direction. You need their experiences to help direct your decisions, because there's going to be some things that you don't know and you haven't seen. And it's other people's bumps, bruises, mistakes, failures that are going to help you skip over that. So you have to be willing and open to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People think entrepreneurship and they think solopreneur.
Yeah.
That's kind of the a big buzzword over the last 10 years. Is like, hey, forget having a big team, like
Yeah.
do it yourself. And then you get AI and AI agents and the rest of that, and people talk about it. But there's little that replaces a team that's been put onto the same mission,
Yeah.
going in the same direction in order to accomplish something big.
Yeah.
How do you build a team like that? How do you get them focused and go into one direction?
Well, you have to have the vision first. Like when I say you have to have the vision, you have to have the vision where they got to prod out your cold hands. Like, this is where we're going. Doesn't mean you're not flexible. Doesn't mean you can't make some shifts, but we're going north. We may have to head south a little. We may have to reverse to the west, but we are going north. You have to know that. And then you have to be able to you have to be able to sell that so they believe it, because you need them to go north with you. But the biggest thing is you got to hire the right people, and you have to let go of the wrong people. I forget which company it was, but I think it was Granger, and I was about to fire this guy, and we were sitting down, and good dude, totally wrong position, should not be outside sales nowhere, and we tried to find him another spot. It just was not a good fit for him. And we sat down, and I asked him, you know why we're here? And he's like, yeah, I know. Right? Because part of leadership is your people should never be surprised. They should never be surprised in how they're doing. You should be letting them know if they're doing well, compliment them, give them encouragement. If they're messing up, how can we get better? If you believe you hired the right person, how can we get better? But ultimately, when I sat down with him, he already knew. I've never fired anybody, and I like to say I've never actually fired anybody. They fired themselves. But I've never fired anybody and they didn't know why. But I also move quick. So if I identify within 2 months that you're not going to work, I'm not going to drag it 6 or 8 or a year. It's not fair to them. And it's not fair to all the other people that are pulling and we're pushing north. So you have to hire right. And you only get a 50-50 chance of hiring. So you got to hire right. And you got to be okay if it was not a good hire.
Yeah.
Because I have 3 daughters. My oldest is 25. She started dating back in high school. And before she started dating, I said, everybody you date is not going to be a good fit. But that doesn't mean they're not good people. It just means they're not good for you. So when you in relationships, give them something of value to take with it if you can. But never wish them ill because they didn't work out for you. Because that can be somebody else's amazing, right? That's how people are. Identify who you want to run with. give them clear direction, give them support and encouragement. Me, I only work with adults. So when I would take over sales team, and that's one thing Granger would have me do, they'd give me sales teams that were failing, and they'd ask me to bring them up, and we get in the HR meeting, and they would get a chance to ask me questions, and they would ask me what sort of leader am I? And I said, first, I'm a motivational leader. I believe in everybody that's here is supposed to be here. But second of all, I only lead adults. I'm not gonna be over your shoulder. I'm not gonna be looking over everything you do. You know what you're supposed to do. I'm gonna make sure I'm clear on what you're supposed to do. We're gonna have a clear point of what we're supposed to be going, and then I need you to be an adult about it and handle your business. And if you can do that, you'll be fine. And if you can't, you won't be. Right. And I find that people appreciate that. But I'm a big people leader. I believe in people, and I want you to be successful, even if successful means not here.
Most entrepreneurs, I think, are really bad at what you just said. They're really bad at hiring people and treating them like adults.
Yeah.
Letting them do a job. 2 questions for you. Number 1, what tools can you give that entrepreneur who knows they need to hire people to hire right the first time? And then number 2, what can they do to actually treat their employees like adults so the employee can go and do the good things?
In hiring right, and so these are the things that I said, the stuff I realized where I was lacking in entrepreneur space. I'd go back in corporate America and I would learn these things, right? So the hiring piece is what I learned obviously through corporate America. The biggest tool when it comes to hiring right is a very clear directive on what you expect. What is the role? What do you expect? A lot of times entrepreneurs are just like, I'm just going to hire somebody. Okay, what are you hiring for? Well, I don't know. Well, what do you need? I'm not sure. Well, what do you expect? I don't like, there's no clear vision. So then you just hire somebody, and it's usually just a friend or somebody you know, and you hope that they can come in and read your mind, and then it doesn't work out. You have to have written down exactly what you need, exactly what you expect. What does that look like? You have to treat them in that regard like a third grader, right? Don't leave them guessing. If you're hiring them for a role, they should be able to articulate exactly what you're looking for, what they're going to be doing, and what they expect. If you can do that, that's going to help you. Now, the second part is the hardest part, which is, now how do I live them the freedom to be the adult, to do the thing that I hired them to do when this is my baby and I want to keep my hands on it, I want to touch every single thing. If that's who you are, and you listening and you can't let it go, then you need to hire somebody that is a servant mind, that only will move when you tell them to move. That is a horrible thing to do, but if that's who you are, you need to hire somebody that can only move when you tell them to move, because anybody outside of that is going to leave. Independent thinker, independent worker, somebody that can probably take your business to the next level is going to leave, because you are micromanaging them. But if that's your style and you are just not willing to shift and adjust, hire people that like to be micromanaged. They will be happy. You may not get a lot because you're going to work yourself to death, but they will be happy, and you will be happier because you're feeling that need. I'm a big believer in let people be who they are. So here's your gap. You're a micromanager. How do you stop being micromanaging? You make sure that you do the first thing first, the right questions, the right position, completely understanding what the role is, what the expectations are, and then how you're going to measure them. And then you do that, and you will slowly start trusting the person. But if you don't want to do that, then you need to hire somebody and be honest in the interview. I'm a micromanager. I like to have my hand on every single thing. I'm looking for somebody that is absolutely comfortable with that.
Yeah. So you're saying that micromanagement can be solved.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a micromanager.
No.
And that it starts with preparation.
Yeah.
And clearly defining what the role is, what the job is.
Yeah.
And then letting the person do what you clearly defined.
Yep.
So is half or more than half of the battle of a micromanager just that, hey, you didn't prepare.
Yes.
You didn't really put down on paper what you want them to specifically do and get good at.
Yes. That's where the majority of people, I feel, fail. I think that's why the majority of companies fail. I label that into the operation side, right? So I know a lot of great mechanics, really great mechanics. And some of them have started their own businesses and failed. It wasn't because they didn't know cars. All of a sudden they forgot cars. No, they worked for BMW or Mercedes or wherever they worked. They all of a sudden forget a crescent wrench. Like, no, but they couldn't manage the operational side of business. That operational side of business is that piece that details out all these expectations and these roles and who's doing what and what type of person are we looking for? And then how do we feel it? That operational side of business, I think, is what most people fail at because one, they've never had to do it, or two, they don't see as valuable because it's not flashy like sales and marketing and advertising. It's boring. It's in the office. It's behind the computer screen. It's thought stuff. But if you don't do the thought stuff, it's the equivalent of, hey, I like that lot over there. That's a beautiful lot. Cool. I'm going to go buy that lot. Great. Go buy that lot. I got the money to buy that lot. I bought that lot. Wonderful. I'm going to build a house. What kind of house? I don't know. You don't know what kind of house you're going to build on that lot? Nope. What kind of house will it fit? I don't know. You don't know what type of house it fit? Nope. Can you even build a house on that lot? I don't know. Wait a minute. You bought the lot. You had the money to buy. You did all that, but you didn't do the bare things in order to even understand what you could do with that. That's how most people start business. I got a skill. I can do something. Let me go do it. You didn't even do the foundation work. That's operations. And I think that's where most people fail at it because it's boring.
Does that mean that for the people who are out there that say you want to start a business, follow your passion, do something that you're super interested in, is that maybe bad advice? Because then you don't want to give up the stuff that you enjoy doing to do the meat and potatoes of the business?
I think it's bad advice because just because you're passionate about it don't mean you can make money at it. Now, you could like basket weaving. You could be an incredible basket weaver. I don't know how big a basket weaving company you can build. Now, I'm not, for any basket weavers out there, I ain't shooting in basket weavers like
keep on
weaving, right? But just because you have a passion for it doesn't mean it's sellable or scalable. What you have to find is what people need and want. And do you have the ability to provide that? If you have that, now you have a tangible thing that is sellable and scalable. And if it aligns with your passion, that's great. My daughter, back to the 25-year-old, she loves a lot of different things, but she's not passionate about anything, which I think is where most of us really are in life, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm not passionate about real estate. I wasn't passionate about the limo service, right? I don't know if I was passionate about any job or company that I started, but I do have a driver that's motivating me to do the things that is outside of the thing that I'm doing. I was never completely gifted with, I played a lot of sports, but I wasn't going to make the NFL, the NBA, the soccer league, none of that. I don't have this incredible voice where I can just sing and fill stadiums. I think most of us don't have a passion. We have a desire. And we want something more out of life that we're desiring. We just don't know the vehicle that we need to take to do it. So we label this find your passion thing. Well, my thought is identify your skills and your abilities and what you can do, and then identify a lack in the market. And then take your skills to fill that lack. And you'll find passion, even if it's chasing that thing that's driving you. But I don't know the people that do like Scrub Daddy, the little smiley face scrubbies, right?
Yeah.
I don't know they passionate about dishes, right? You clean. I don't think they passionate about that, but that's $566 million or something they made in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't think they passionate about that.
Yeah.
But it fit a need. The Breathe Right nasal strips, right? I don't know if the person who invented that was passionate about not breathing. I don't know. But it was a need that the marketplace had that they filled. So if you're struggling with, I don't know my passion, it may be because you don't have a passion about anything, but what is your skill set? What are your experiences? What are your life events? What are your corporate events? What have you learned along this journey that you can feel a need to solve a problem? Because that's what people pay for. That's why people hire you. They don't hire you because they don't have a problem. They hire you to solve a problem.
Yeah.
That's why this whole place we're in right now is they know that people want to have a studio to shoot their pod. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Boom. They feeling the need.
It's funny to me because it's not lost on me. I made all my money selling soap. And when I got out of the military, people were laughed at me because they said, "What's your plan?" I said, "What are you going to go do after this?" Like, "Oh, I'm going to go sell some soap." Like, "Can you make a living selling soap?" It's like, yeah, more than you know. Okay.
Johnson and Johnson, like,
right?
Can you make a living?
But to your point, like that, I'm not passionate about soap whatsoever, but I like making money. Okay. I'm passionate about that.
There you go.
I'll work 18 hours a day doing anything. Like you said, if the finances are right.
Yeah.
We can make that happen.
That drive is the thing, man. It's like, I need to get these bills paid, or I want to, whatever your thing is. I want to, fly on private jets, or whatever your desire is. I want to go on vacations 3 times a year. I think we're so stuck in passion. Oh, my passion.
How do people that are not intrinsically motivated find the motivation that's going to be required to be successful in business?
So my first thought when you asked that question was, don't do it. Just stay working for somebody, right? Let somebody motivate you in other ways. If you just are dead set on, I want to do it, and I'm not intrinsically motivated, I need all these external factors, which, by the way, we all need some things, right? Even driving up here, I had to put on some of my old school music to get my head in the right space, right? We all need something that pushes us.
Yeah.
Recognize that's who you are, and then feed that need, right? Don't try to pretend you're not that. If you're not internally motivated just naturally, then find the voices outside of you that motivate you and continue to feed that. And I think what you'll find is what you feed grows. And you'll be able to take those external voices and internalize them. And so when you get into those moments where you don't feel like doing a thing, you can now learn how to self-motivate yourself. So I believe it can be taught. It can be a learned skill, but it starts with acknowledging that's not who I am, but I want to be. So now let's bring in those external factors to help you until you become that.
Yeah. Would that be like other people, other partners who do have that motivation that you feel like, hey, I'll let myself down. I'm not going to let down this person.
Yep.
Like, would that be an example of external factor?
That could definitely be it. It could literally be people you like, ET on YouTube, right? It could be other public speakers. It could be other business owners it could be a Gary V, it could be Grant, it could be whoever it is that speaks to you, whether you actually know them or not. Those unknown, what do they call it? Unknown mentors.
Yeah.
That helps you stay motivated and focused. Then use that.
Yeah.
Especially in today.
Sure. Get a hype man, huh?
Get you a hype man.
Yeah.
Get you a hype man. Don't start, man. I got a speaking engagement coming up, and they asked me for an intro song. And my mind works like this. I'm like, why would I go get somebody else's intro song? So I hired a guy to write me an intro song, right? And so we're going back and forth right now. And he sent me one thing, and I'm like, that sucked. I didn't like it. Nope. And so he got another artist. But I'm like, yeah, sometimes get your own hype man. Put your own song together, right?
Yeah.
Have your own stuff where you can hear your name being called, where you can see yourself in a spot.
Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting because someone would say that they're not internally motivated, but everyone has things that motivate them.
Yep.
So you're saying, hey, go tap into whatever that is that does it for you.
Yeah.
And then align that into what you want to go and accomplish.
Yeah.
Do you think that people dream big enough, or do they dream too big?
I don't think people wake up from the dreams. I think it's too much dreaming going on. And what I mean by that is, a dream is great, but a dream happens in an unconscious state, which usually has little reality wrapped in it. So instead of dream, why don't you visualize? A vision is an active state of movement. It is the ability to see the thing. It's so visually stimulating, you can almost touch it. That is a motivator that drives you to continue to walk through it no matter what's in front of you. So to me, dream is passive. Oh, I had a dream. Most of us can't control our dreams. We don't even know how we had a dream. We just had the dream. But if you lay out a vision, that gives you direction, that gives you purpose, that gives you drive, that gives you desire, and go get it, right? My vision for my life is that I die empty. Anything that comes to this little bitty crazy head here that is an entrepreneur opportunity that I believe is for me, I want to go after it. I don't want anybody to drive past a gravesite and say, all those people in there died with visions that was never accomplished. I want them to say, man, Kenny went for it. Like, yeah, that limo company didn't work, but he had some wins along this journey. And exposure experts may or may not work.
Yeah.
But he gonna go for it because I have a vision for it.
I think that failures along the way are so important. I was watching some of your content 2 days ago, and I think you were talking to the real estate team, which we need to talk about as well.
Okay.
I think this is from 2 years ago, but you talked about how you're not going to learn unless you just hop in and fail. Like, that gets missed by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, when you preach that to people, does that sink in?
No, because a lot of people view failure as a negative. They feel that failure is a tombstone, right? Because you failed, now it means it's over. No, not unless you decide it's over, right? I failed, obviously, and I haven't decided that the story is over. It's just a dot, it's a turn, it's an adjustment, it's a check, right? Because I don't know if there's any point in my life, I think maybe prison taught me this. I don't know if there was any point in my life where I was worried about failing. It's okay to fail. I think that's what also made me successful in the sales world. I was never worried about a no. It's okay to say no. Get to the no quick. If it's gonna be a no, let's hear the no. And then let's figure out if we can turn the no into a yes. And if we can, then let's part ways and keep moving. So failure is not a negative, but I think most people view it as negative. And so if they've built up this vision in their minds of, if I don't succeed, if I fail, all these horrible things come with failure. And that's not really true. Unless you decide to just sink the whole ship, you know, unless you can't recognize that this is failing, we need to do something different. And you just decide, I'm just going to go down because I'm just going to be right. Well, you're going to be right in the fact that you're going to fail. But don't be afraid of failure, because if assessed and looked at correctly, it can lead into something, or it can revitalize what you're going after. And we have countless examples of major corporations, of people. The biggest one, Steve Jobs, got fired from Apple. Like, that would feel like failure if I started this company and then they don't want me anymore. But had he decided to just go into obscurity and not do anything from that, we would not have the Apple we know today. Failure is built into the process. It's almost like if I'm going to go from Dallas to Houston and I'm going to take 45 south, there is a part of me that understands that there is a possibility that 2.5 to 3 hour drive could take longer if there's a wreck. And so I need to account for some things that will probably come along this journey. Well, as an entrepreneur, you need to account for some hiccups, some challenges. You won't know them until you're in the journey. You don't know that there's a wreck down there that's going to be a 2-hour delay. You need to get off early and go around until you're in the journey. But if you can account for in your mind that there's going to be some challenges, some struggles, and some disappointments, when it happens, you don't freak out. And that freak out is because you don't have a plan. And that lack of planning is what causes the ship to continue to sink into failure because you don't know how to make an adjustment.
What can people do to gain confidence that when they do fail, they can make that adjustment?
If you live long enough in life, you can look back on all your other experiences because you can find some failure, but yet you still living, which means you made some adjustments, you recovered from some things, and you kept going. If you're young and maybe you don't have anything you think you can tie to, ask your parents. They can tell you some things you wasn't so good at, right? But you have to be able to identify the fact that you're not perfect. It's easy for us a lot of times to forget our small failures, but those small failures can show you that you are stronger. You can endure. You can overcome. But if you live long enough in life, you can just point to some things and say, yeah, I've made it through that and I'm still living. I'm still breathing. Yeah. Why did I make that mistake? What did I do wrong? What was the issue? And you assess it, you learn, and you grow. But the only way you can do that is by being honest with yourself and looking at how has your life played out? What parts have you played in it? And then what do you want different?
Yeah. One of those other things that comes from that employee mindset that I think people have to get themselves out of when they want to become an entrepreneur is this idea of work-life balance.
Yeah.
You have very strong opinions on this. What are they?
Man, that is an illusion.
Work-life balance is an illusion.
It is an illusion. It's like quiet quitting. Like, what does that mean? Just quit or leave or stay, whatever. The way that I describe it is like this. One, I don't believe there is no work-life balance. I don't think there is a work-life balance. There's counterbalances, right? I think about my children. Probably the best analogy I can do that. I have a 25-year-old. I have one that's about to be 16, one that's about to be 14. At every stage of their lives, they needed different things. I had to shift and adjust, right? The 25-year-old now, when she was 2, needed a lot more of my attention, a lot more of my focus, a lot more of my time. As she started to learn to walk and then started to go into school, I was able to balance my time and effort to focus in on some other things because she didn't need as much at the time. It was never 50-50. It was never she gets 50%, work gets 50%, or wife gets 50%. It was never 50-50 because there's always this pendulum that's swinging based upon the need that's currently happening in the household or in your life. So you're steady trying to balance this thing out that is not going to balance because at every point, everybody needs something different. I wear a lot of hats. I would look crazy if I'm saying I'm going to wear entrepreneur hat 20%, daddy hat 20%, dating hat 20%, and I want it all to work out perfectly in my mind. And then when it doesn't, because life doesn't work like that, tornadoes come and they don't come announced, right? The rainstorm will fall and you didn't know it was raining, so you didn't bring your umbrella. That's how life works. So you have to give yourself the freedom to counterbalance and understand when you're getting too heavy one way or the other, where your daughter or your children or your spouse, whatever, needs you and the company needs you. You have to be willing to make adjustment and sacrifices have to be made because there is no success without sacrifice. So you're going to have to make some adjustments, but it's never going to be balanced.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are in that right now. They've got strong family ties pulling them one direction and the business pulling them in the other. It's so easy sometimes to look at their situation when it's not you being in it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, go focus on the business and get it set, get the right people in place, and then you're going to have all the... What do you say to those people who are in it right now, being pulled in one direction, knowing that focus might be the difference in their business failing or being successful?
Yeah. I say it's possible. What is possible? Both scenarios are possible. You adjusting too much and losing the family, or you adjusting too much and losing the business. But you're going to have to decide what needs what and be okay with the adjustment, right? So from a business side, like I really believe that a lot of doing business with my ex probably cost us our marriage, right? And some would say, well, wow, you should have adjusted one way, adjusted the other way. Well, maybe, but I don't regret it. We still work together fine. We have a really good friendship. All those things are in place. But I don't know that we were balanced together anyway. I think we were a great entrepreneurial fit, right? The things that I need, and I think the things that she needed from a husband, from a wife standpoint, were not in line with each other. And so that wasn't a failure, though it failed. But the business definitely impacted it. And that was almost 18 years.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be willing to let something suffer. Now, that might just be today. Like, you may say, you know what? My family needs me today. I'm not taking this phone call. Right? And it may have been an important phone call, but it's going to have to suffer today. Or, you know what? I'm not gonna make this game because I have to close this deal, and I want to be there for that soccer game. I want to be there for whatever that game is, but I'm gonna show up the next day, and that is going to hurt. But I've got to do this. That's a sacrifice, and it's real. Like, it's real life decisions that you're gonna have to make that are not always pleasant. You're not always gonna like the outcome, and it's not always gonna be the best solution. But sometimes it's gonna work out okay.
Yeah.
But you got to be willing to let it play out.
I want to talk about your book, From Employee to Boss, and this One Idea Challenge.
Yeah.
I'm super interested in these two. Let's start with the book. Give me your top concept from the book. If there's one takeaway that you want readers to get from the book, what is it?
Being a boss is all mindset and sacrifice. It is not the fact that you created the LLC or the S Corp or whatever you did. It's not the fact that you got business cards. It's not the fact that you might even got an office. You may have done all those things. But if your mindset doesn't change from an employee mindset to a boss, not the figurative I run things boss, but the figurative I'm responsible and I'm going to take on this responsibility and will this thing to be what I envisioned it to be, then you're already behind. And that book, a lot of it is examples of people that I've worked with that had to make that mental shift. The employee to boss mindset isn't just about entrepreneurship either. You can be an employee at a company with a boss mindset. When you talk about moving, I learned that from Granger. When I went into Granger, I was way overqualified. Like, say, I told you about two friends, Elisa and Kimmy. So Elisa was at Granger. This was actually after I finished the thing with JQM. I retired, looking for my next thing. And she's like, you need to come over to Granger. I'm like, well, who is Granger? I never heard Granger. It's the largest industrial supply company in the United States, but I didn't know that. And so I'm like, well, what jobs they got open? I'm thinking, district manager, VP, something. She's like, no, they got outside sales, $30,000 a year. And I'm not scoffing at $30,000 a year, but what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Did you not know the deal? I just feel like, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, it's a great organization. You need to do it. And I said, one that never turned out a challenge, apparently. I said, you know what? I ain't got to do. I'll go to the interview. So I went in there, Sean Pelletier. I've had some great people in my life. Sean Pelletier was interviewing. He looked at my resume and he's like, man, why are you here? And I said, Sean, I love Granger. And he's like, why are you here? Like, why are you sitting here? And I said, you know what, Sean, to be honest with you, Elisa told me about Granger. I wanted to come in. I'd never heard of Granger. I just wanted to come in. And him and I had a really good conversation for like 30 minutes talking about life and everything. And so we were done. And he thinks it's over. And he says, okay, well, it was good meeting you. I said, well, do I have a job? He's like, Kenny, you don't want this job. And I'm like, no, do I have this job? And he's like, this job pays $30,000 with a company car and and it's entry. And I said, no. I said, let me ask you this one question, Sean. How do I move up in this company? I said, I'm not trying to move up, but if I were to move up, how does it work? And he said, typically, we want you to be in a position for 3 years. You get to know people, then you move up to the next level, which would be his job, and then you get to know people, you move up. and stuff like that. I said, but if I got into this job and I was excelling, is that the rule or is that just the typical ladder? He's like, well, that's just the typical ladder. He said, well, then I said, give me the job. He's like, I said, yeah, give me the job. He said, okay, I'm gonna hire you, but you got to give me at least 2 years commitment. I said, no problem, I'll do that. He gave me a job. I had a territory in the middle of Fort Worth. They gave me a brand new account with this company that done maybe 100,000 a year. In less than a year, I had them doing 30 million. Wow. I had his job in year 1 because he got promoted. In year 2, I had a national accounts job, which they gave me FedEx, UPS, and BNSF Railroad. They're 3 largest accounts in Granger in DFW area. By year 3, I had a district manager's job. By year 4, I had a national accounts manager's job. And then by year 5, I figured out what I wanted to do in entrepreneurial space, and I left. And I still go back, and they asked me to come back and speak to some of the people and all that about that journey. In that 5 years I was with them, I had 4 different upgraded positions. You have to believe in you. You have to be humble enough to start where you start. But you got to just give them all. Like when you go for it, you don't walk in there and say, hey, what do you want me to do? Yeah, I knew my job. But you walk in there with a boss mindset, and you're like, how can I make this place better? How can I make this situation better? When you start solving problems, people pay you a lot of money to solve problems.
Yeah.
So that employee to boss mindset isn't just about entrepreneurship. It's about if you're at a company and someone has hired you to do a job, don't just do that job. Solve the bigger problem. You will open up the door. The Bible talking about your gift making room for you. You will open up the door for yourself if you go in understanding that. So that employee to boss book was written with that in mind, because I know not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur, and not everybody should be.
Yeah. Give me the 2-minute version of what the One Idea Challenge is all about.
One Idea Challenge. So the One Idea Challenge is giving me fits right now, man. It's this great idea that I had that the marketplace isn't loving yet. So I'm talking about tweaking and adjusting. So the One Idea Challenge was, people would always come to me and it would say something similar like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I want to do something. And they have all these elaborate things of what they can do. And, sometimes they'll start like 3 businesses at one time. Like, that's not a good idea. So the One Idea Challenge was a 5-day online Zoom that I walked them through, that at the end of the 5th day, I helped them identify the one viable idea in a business that they can start. I helped them identify how to set their operations up. I helped them create an offer that they can actually sell, and then how to sell it. So it's a beautiful concept. And I know people want it and need it.
Yeah.
But man, I ain't got nobody buy it. So I know that a lot of it is me, because while I know the resume, I'm an unknown commodity. Like literally, you was watching my videos, so you probably landed on my TikTok. And like, I got all these people on TikTok. I only started TikTok as a challenge. I started TikTok last year around May or June, because I kept challenging agents to do social media and they wouldn't do it. And I'm like, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Just
shoot some videos and get out there. And that thing ballooned up. I think I got like to 21,000 followers in about 4 months.
Yeah.
And then I now hardly ever do it. But I bring that in to say this. Part of the problem that I'm having, I know, with my One Idea Challenge is nobody knows me.
Yeah.
They don't know my story. They don't know my background. I'm just some random guy saying, hey, I can help you. Hey, believe me. Air quotes. And so now I'm on the mission to create better content. If you look at my social media, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Create more purposeful content around the employee mindset, around the one idea, around giving them value with my content, and then getting my name out there so they start to know me, so they can like me, and then ultimately trust me, so I can help them figure out that one idea that they can get their own thing off the ground.
People may not know the name Kenny Donnell today,
Right.
but something tells me that what you're cooking up right now, they're gonna know your name.
Yeah.
I look at you and I think, okay, why can't you be Gary Vee?
Right.
You know, why can't you be Hormozy? You have the resume that goes with it.
Yeah.
You're actively doing it. You've done it. You've been there. You have the story for it. And so I'm excited that I've had you on here for us to be able to be a part of that story for you. But I mean, 3-4 years from now, you'd be like, I'm not coming on your show, Steve. You're not big enough yet.
Oh,
okay?
no, man. Steve, dog, I got you locked in the phone, man.
There we go. You better keep that number, too.
I got you locked in. No, I'm always going to show up.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. We didn't get to all of it. We didn't talk about real estate at all, which is such a huge piece of it. And you're winning in life, but your story and where you come from, I think, can give hope and inspiration to a lot of people who think that their past is going to define where they're at. Yeah. And I talk to people all the time who just say, "Oh, I'm still stuck from fill in the blank," and it's not prison, it's credit card debt, and child support and this, and that's why I can't go out and live my dreams. And you're living proof that it's like, shut up, shut up, go do something about it.
Back to that mush.
That's
no
right.
one cares, man. Come on, just go do something.
Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. This was fun, and we're gonna have to do it again as time goes on and talk more about what you have going on, as you're gonna be a big player in this game.
I'm down, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks,
All
Kenny.
right.